do need to learn how to spell environmental.
Yeah, I noticed
That's
that.
Suzanne. Poor thing.
I had her correct the
I
oath.
think we should spell it, I think we should spell it that way as a matter of course.
It's one of those words that just seems to trip her up. It's hysterical.
This is not gonna
We
be an
all have
environmental
something.
attorney, this is gonna be environment attorney.
Is we ready to get started?
We're ready.
All right, as the city attorney, I was, just to start off, I was asked by the commission to be on the board, but I resigned quickly thereafter so that I could act as legal counsel for this committee / board. So at any time, you can ask me questions and input, but I'm not gonna be a voting member of the board, just to put that out there.
Yes, those are
And
one for
I guess
everybody.
until we have a chair that's appointed, I'll call the meeting to order. And we're here for the Environmental Attorney Screening Committee. Today's date is March 13th, 2025. City Clerk, would you do a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Board Member Cavo? Here. Board Member Collins?
Here.
Board Member Johnson-Strong?
Here.
Board Member Killer?
Here.
Board Member Perry?
Here.
Board Member Stuckey?
Here.
Next is to do the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'll stand with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to go through a couple of the action items before we do a motion for approval of the agenda. Again, my name is Lee Baggett, the city attorney. Welcome and good morning, everybody. Let's start off with some introductions. We'll start with Mr. Stuckey.
Yes, I'll save my comments for later, but I've lived in Stewart since 1956, and I've watched our lovely river die. I mean, it is dead. Mark's watched it too, Ed's watched it too. And I've been trying to get a city commission to do something for 10 years, and we finally got a city commission that's willing to do this. If we get the right person, we can solve this problem. And I'm hoping this committee will help us find the right person. Thank you.
I'm Ed Killer. I was born here in Martin County and lived here the rest of my whole life, raised the next generation, my family here, and a grandson now. So heavily have a vested interest in seeing the river get cleaned up one day and not be dead as it's been my entire life. So let's see that.
Mark Perry. Like, grew up here 78. So, we never talked. Warning. Say, look, they're doubting all work does. Location. Rivers. Border.
I'm Roz Johnson Strong. I'm the Human Resources Director here. I'm
elected and trusted.
I'm Ryan Powers Pavo. I am the city paralegal. I've been the city here for 9 years. Grew up on the water in Miami and Fort Lauderdale and moved here in 2004. And I think that I can find the right for the position.
All right, the next item that I wanted to discuss was the legal concepts and sunshine, Robert's Rules of Order. I don't expect you all to be experts on the Robert's Rules of Order. If you have any questions, you can obviously ask me. But in a few moments, we're going to select a chair, not me, hopefully, and that chair will have the gavel, and we'll try and be somewhat formal, but this is obviously an informal meeting. But in order to keep order, we'll need to have a chair. And in our rules, our code of ordinances, we've codified rules for other advisory boards, committees. This one is just, seems to me we're gonna have a one-shot deal here, so we're not gonna have an ongoing meeting. You guys may decide to have another secondary meeting, that's up to y'all, but it seems to me that this is probably one meeting. So, we're not gonna need to codify rules and all for this committee. But we can kind of share and use the rules from the other advisory boards and committees going forward, and the city commission has adopted the Robert's Rules of Order. And so we have a chair, so try and, when you want to speak, try and get recognized by the chair, whoever he or she is, before you speak. That way we're not talking all at once. This meeting is being streamed live, and it's also going to be recorded. So we have these microphones in front of you. So far, everybody's done a decent job, but be sure to speak audibly, loudly into the microphone so it can be recorded, and that people at home or that are watching can hear what you're saying. The sunshine, I sent you an email before a couple days ago. It's just important that you guys don't speak outside of this published meeting, notice meeting, about items that are going to be discussed. Again, I think we're only going to have this one meeting, so it's probably not going to matter hereafter. But if you guys do decide to have a continuation or a second meeting, you'll just need to be cognizant not to talk about candidates on your own, pairs or threes or any other number outside of a publicized meeting. There's some ethical rules that apply. I don't think it's an issue, but there's a nepotism law, so I don't think anybody here is related to any of the candidates, but if they are, you might want to at least bring it up and let me know. And if you have any questions procedurally or legally at any time, don't hesitate to ask. That's why I'm here. As I mentioned before we got started, I was potentially going to be a board member, but I'm not. I'm the legal counsel, but if you have any questions for me throughout, I'm fine with answering the question.
How would that
Yeah, if this is it, we're done, then after today, then you guys can talk about it afterwards, and you can talk about it. You're not allowed to talk about it with other commissioners, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I think this board was tasked to review and make a recommendation. I think when at the end of this meeting, hopefully you guys will do that, and your job will be done. I guess in abundance of caution, we might want to wait until the next commission meeting in case the commission sends something back to you guys. Maybe you narrow it down to 6 people, and the commission says, "Oh, we want 3," and they bring it back. So basically, in an abundance of caution, we adjourn today, even though it's a single meeting. Let's wait till the next city commission meeting before you talk amongst each other about the issues. Because, right,
I have a question, Lee.
sure.
Assuming we narrow down our panel to be interviewed today, I think it's very important that I be able to be somehow involved in the interviews is it possible for this committee to delegate someone to sit in on the interviews, to consult with our HR people to just make sure that the questions that I think are important to the concept get asked and answered?
I think, I mean, you can, you're an advisory board, so you could recommend that, and then the
I
city
mean, but there's
commission.
nothing to prohibut that, is there?
I wouldn't say, but the city commission could prohibit it, so.
Probably have to be authorized by all
Well,
of us.
that's,
to do
well,
it.
that's what I, would-
Right.
but I think, well, wait till I have time for comments and we have a chairman and, but,
And if you made that recommendation, I can bring that
I
forward
was the,
to the commission.
yeah.
I will say that when I was interviewed a year and a half ago, we had a public meeting, and then we broke up individually. The candidates, me and the other candidates, met individually with each of the commissioners. I think it was like 30 minutes long.
Right.
And I think one or two of the commissioners had other people in the room that were not commissioners, helping them interview.
Correct.
So there's a precedent for it. And I don't know that, I wasn't here before that, so I don't know if that commissioner
Sure.
or commissioners had authorization to have someone else in the room with them interviewing the candidates, but they did, so.
Well, this is such a specialized position, and I used to teach environmental law. I haven't practiced it for many, many years, but I've pretty much kept up with a lot of developments. In fact, the Supreme Court has just said that Clean Water Act does not guarantee us clean water. So we're gonna have to be even more creative. But at any rate, I would be like to be involved with interviewing these people just because I have the specialized knowledge necessary to make sure that they are competent in what they say they are.
Well, if we do the same process that we did when I got hired, we will have a public meeting, and then
So any commissioner could ask me
to join them.
You
And
can technically tag along with me as long as we've disbanded this board.
Okay, good. Well, I just want to make sure, because I would hate to get this far and then find out that there was a fatal flaw in the candidate that I could have avoided ending up with. So anyway, I hate to talk too much, but I'm so excited. I've been working on this for
That's
so long.
good, man. This is awesome. You've been working a long time.
so
Thanks to my compadre, too.
the next issue, or topic of discussion is to take the oath. So let's all stand and raise your right hand. You have the written oath in front of you, but I'm going to ask you to repeat after me.
That's easier, yeah.
I thought you already had it, but apparently you didn't.
Attorney Baggett, may I just state something for the record?
Sure.
There will be no live streaming of
Okay.
this particular meeting.
All
It
right.
is being recorded and will be later available on YouTube. on the
Okay,
website.
thank you.
Thank you.
Are you ready? Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Christopher Collins,
Am qualified under the Constitution,
am qualified under the Constitution,
laws of Florida, and
laws
code
of
of,
Florida,
and the code of ordinances for the city of Stuart, Florida,
and the code of ordinances for the city of Stuart, Florida.
to serve as a member of the Environmental Attorney Screening Committee,
Serve as a member of the Environmental Attorney Screening Committee,
and that I will well
and that I will well
faithfully perform the duties
faithfully perform the duties
of an advisory board member
of an advisory board member
on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
Thank you. You can be seated.
Need to sign this and turn it in?
You'll need to sign it in front of the city clerk, but we don't have to do that right now. We can do it before you leave. All right, so the next topic on the agenda is the selection of a chair. So typically, under Robert's Rules of Order, someone can say, I would like to move to recommend someone else, or you could move to recommend yourself, I guess. So,
I would like to volunteer. I was the chair of the Citizens Review Board of the City of Stuart for 13 years, so I do know how to run a meeting. And, but I will be happy to vote for somebody that would like to do it instead.
I would move for Max Stuckey to be the chair.
do we have a second?
We'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none?
Thank you.
All right.
Chair Stuckey.
I call the meeting to order.
Yes.
Thank you so much for agreeing to, thank you to the city of Stuart for having the courage to do this. We have a city now which looks very much like Disney World, especially with the new street signs making up districts that I never knew existed, Triangle District, the Creek District. And so on land, the city is very pretty. But unfortunately, we are surrounded by a toxic river, which should be our best and most valuable resource. And everybody knows that the source of the death of our river are primarily the discharges from the C-44 canal, also known as the St. Lucie Canal, which is nothing more than a man-made ditch, which has been turned into a sewer pipe. The environmental regulations of the federal regulations and the state legislations have totally failed the city of Stewart to protect our property values and our health. And we are a tiny little demographic, totally surrounded by the worst results of this river and these discharges. 100 years of political pleading has not succeeded. We need to find a solution. I do not know what the solution is. I do believe that the Rivers Coalition lawsuit filed in 2006 and continued through about 2011 created a lot of facts and law that ended up in a failed attempt. But I do believe that the court really, really wanted to help. And they gave a blueprint, I think, of a way to help. But there are probably, I've talked to many, many environmental attorneys. I've made a presentation to the entire Florida Bar environmental section on Zoom a couple months ago and reached out to the people. And we've got some very qualified, we got 15 applicants, 10 actually meet the qualifications, 5 of them haven't even graduated from law school. I mean, I'm tempted to talk to those people because they're young and zealous, but really this is going to need to be someone that has fought the wars and knows where the bodies are buried and what works and what doesn't work, and don't go down half-cocked on things. The first 2 years of this position are going to need to be developing the best possible strategy for solving the problem, and the problem being stopping the discharges permanently, reducing the discharges, which is what they've done and talked about, is a lot like reducing the federal deficit. I mean, we can reduce the deficit, but we're still getting trillions of dollars in debt. We can reduce the discharges, but the river will continue to be dead and dying until those discharges are stopped forever. And then all of our dedicated people who have been working so hard to save our river can start working on trying to restore it, either through private money or requiring the government who has destroyed it from fixing it. So I see this as not a 1 or 2 year engagement. This is a full-time career position, which if we succeed, will take probably a couple of decades, and then they will have to remain in position to maintain the position, because the focus here needs to be to stop the discharges. We cannot get involved in saving the Everglades and restoring the Everglades. That will be something that will be a consequence of us stopping the discharges, because if we can stop the discharges, they will have to figure out a way to clean the water and send it south. And the government may never do it, and the courts may never force the government to do it. So we probably need to also reach out to the private sector. We've got a president now that wants to make deals. I don't know why they can't build the world's largest water treatment plant in the world at the south end of the dike and clean all this fresh water that we throw away every year and sell it. I mean, we need to be creative and go and find out a strategy to stop the discharges. And the city of Stewart cannot be allied with everybody else upstream. We cannot even be allied with the county, because let me tell you a story. One of our applicants was the county attorney, and they were about to file a lawsuit, whereas the South Florida Water Management District and Corps of Engineers were being sued by U.S. Sugar. They were ready to file it to support the Corps against the U.S. Sugar, and the two county commissioners came into the office and sat down there and said, "You cannot do this." The state has walked into our offices and said that if we intervene in this suit on behalf of the county, that they will cut down funding for the county for other projects we're working about, so stop. So the county is not going to be our friend in this. They've got something like 12 county attorneys over there, and they've not done anything for the river. They give it, like everybody else, they give it lip service. I mean, everybody will say, oh, you poor Stewart, you're really suffering, we'll make it better, but they never do. So this person needs to be dedicated to the mission of cleaning up the river. And when we find a way to clean up the river, then all of the upstream people will have a bigger incentive to find a place to put this dirty water. And one thing that many people don't realize is that the biggest and most damaging pollutant coming through the C-44 canal is not phosphorus, nitrogen, or even muck. It's fresh water. When you eject billions of gallons of fresh water into a saltwater estuary all at once, the salinity drops so much that the fish that used to be there, and nice fish, can't live there. If they're there, they die. Crystal, remember when we were kids in the 50s and 60s, when they did the discharges, hundreds of fish, dead fish, would wash up on the beach. There's no fish left to die now. They just do the discharges and the water gets blacker. So it's a huge problem. In the River Coalition suit, the court said it's a huge problem, but the individual litigants did not have standing to right a public wrong. And so that's where I think that the city has the upper hand here, is that this is a damage suffered by the public and not by any individual litigant. And who has the duty to protect the public? Our government. Our upstream governments have completely failed to protect us, so it is up to the city to protect us. And the beautiful part about the city government is that it's nonpartisan. We don't have to get involved with this. You know, if one of our commissioners speaks up, it's one party and the other one feels compelled to disagree with them just because they're the other party. We don't have to deal with that BS. We can be laser focused on solving this problem. So that's my concept. Have a really smart, environmentally versed, and government versed person who can just look at the problem objectively, be only on our side, which is why we can't hire a private law firm, because all those private law firms work with people all over the state, and things, our environmental attorney is going to step on some pretty big toes. And those pretty big toes are politicians and business people who will go to the upstream politicians and put pressure on our people and people in those big firms. So if we found a solution that would really work, but it would impair some of this firm's other clients, then they would be impossible to give us their undivided support. So a big firm can't do this. What a in-house attorney can do is only be working for the citizens of Stewart and not for all the outside interests, some of whom want to restore the Everglades and some of whom just wants to continue using Little Stewart as its septic tank, as I've got illustrated on that nice cartoon that my wife helped me draw, because we're essentially the septic tank for the whole state of Florida. And the St. Lucie Canal is the sewer pipe. We're probably going to have to change some laws. The water transfer rule, for one thing, allows them to put polluted water into our river, saying that it's a natural water body. But the Clean Water Act clearly says that man-made ditches can be point sources of pollution, and there's cases against that. But it's not agricultural runoff coming through that ditch. It is muck. It is herbicides. Orca's study of the fish found the active ingredient in Roundup in every fish they studied. And if you put herbicide in the river, I think that might be a big reason we don't have seagrass anymore. But anyway, I don't know all the answers. All I know is that if we have somebody working on it full-time at a reasonable salary and with the full support of the city, that this, to me, this is the last chance we've got. LOSUM is a joke. They started discharging almost the same day that they approved LOSUM by all the local entities. So one thing our attorney can start doing immediately is trying to enforce LOSUM. Every time they want to make a discharge, make them show us where they've actually considered the damage they're causing when they open those locks. So that's why I want to do this, and we can discuss the candidates. But I've been looking at this for a long time, and I've witnessed to the damages as most of my buddies are, and Most people have come to Stewart in the last 20 years don't even know how wonderful it was.
Chairman Stuckey, may I make some recommendations on how to navigate the
Please,
process? Okay.
please.
First of all, in your booklet that we've put together for you, your binders, behind tab 1 is a recruitment timeline. I have that updated for you based on today's meeting. So this will include, I can make my fingers work, include today's meeting, which was previously identified as TBD. We didn't have a date set for the meeting, so once this date was set, the rest of the dates kind of flowed, so you can replace the timeline that's behind tab 1 with that one.
No, this is-
Secondly, I've produced a summary sheet that might help us navigate the process of looking at the candidates. Behind tab number 4 was the legal size document that it looks like everyone has been working with to identify candidates and highlight and make notes. So since that's a 10 or 14-page document, I also produced for everyone a summary with all the candidates on one sheet, and I have multiple copies of this that might help us check off by our representation and who we're looking at, who we think might be a candidate to recommend for the interview process. So I've got additional copies that we can use. There was a question earlier about how many candidates should be recommended. We do have 16 candidates. One has dropped out, so we do have 15 at this point. We say it's a good idea to have what's called a representative number, and there's no specific math to that. But with 15 candidates, there might be a recommendation to interview 4, 5, 6 of those candidates. But it can be any number. It can be any number that we determine. So a representative number that makes sense of the best qualified candidates, best qualified on paper, as from what we can see. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was that based on this summary sheet that we just passed around compared to your spreadsheet, a thought might be, as far as looking how we look at the candidates, we could look at them in two different ways. One is to go one candidate at a time, or by using the summary sheet, we can go down the names and determine if someone selected them as someone they'd recommend. Because if we're all in agreement, this meeting is pretty much wrapped up in a very short period of time.
I think that'd be an excellent way to proceed, because I'm assuming everybody on our committee has studied
Correct.
the applications
Yes.
and have a short list. And so, yeah, I think that'd be a good way to proceed.
Okay.
Just
For the record, the one who withdrew was Jason.
I just
Yes.
crossed out Tulia.
Yes,
Tui.
to Tui, yeah,
Tui.
Tui, yes,
So scratch that one off your list.
yes.
So if we went member by member to state the ones we thought were worthy to
To
interview,
recommend.
then I think that'd make it go fast.
Do you mind if I lead off?
I would love for you to
All right,
lead.
so
You're the leader.
my short list included Jason, but he's out. So my short list, and I was thinking more in the lines of 3 or 4, just for keeping it simple. When we went through this process with Lee, I think we had 5,
Yes.
I started
sounds
with
right.
10 and narrowed it down,
5 or
yes.
6,
so,
yeah.
but it probably could have been even whittled down a little bit more to 3 or 4.
Okay.
But with Jason out, I counted 1, 2, 3, and potentially a 4th. I know it's tough because this is a publicly recorded meeting. When you guys did it, it was not, from what I remember. So I don't want anybody who's watching this to feel like I'm beating up on them if I don't.
Well, you don't have to say why, you can just say the ones you prefer.
Yes, I'm going to be very candid. My top ones that I saw right off the bat were Simon Serrano, Mark Davis, and Ruth Holmes. And sort of in the maybe category would be Keith Williams and Deanna Khalil. And my hard no was Allison Kelly. And let me give you some context for what I just said here. Starting off with hard no, I guess, would make the most sense. If we go to Allison Kelly, who I should probably write the number next to all these so we can flip back and forth.
She's in Virginia.
17.
17, thank you. So part of this position is the ability to obviously be familiar with all of these different institutions, agencies, which on paper, Allison is a stud. I mean, she's got the most agency experience of any of these. But my concern is how much agency experience Allison has. And my concern with her is that she has spent quality time on behalf of these agencies fighting against claims brought forth relative to the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, comprehensive environmental response. Her job has been doing the opposite of what we want, and she very well may be entrenched in all of these agencies, where I'm really looking for somebody who's more of a fighter, that will be willing to step on the toes of these people and not necessarily feel any allegiance to them. So that was my hard no, and I can go in more depth if you guys want.
I don't think we need to know your nose. It's
Okay.
just my opinion.
Well, I wanted to bring that one up because I thought that she might be someone that comes up on somebody's yes list for just some
I
context.
mean, on
of-
paper, she looks good, yeah.
Right, but that's a serious concern I had, is she's sort of been fighting, what we're trying to accomplish here. So, on my yes list, the first one I said was Simon Serrano, which is tab number 7.
Yeah, he's out in Washington now.
He is. So I'll give you my pluses here and my concerns. So my pluses for Simon is he's a little bit out of the box. He does have some solid environmental attorney experience. He's apparently been functioning at a pretty high level, even within nuclear environmental law. Like, this guy got poached by private sector and pulled out of public, to be able to navigate these issues for the private sector. So he's clearly qualified. He is not a bureaucrat. I would characterize him on paper as the opposite of the previous one. He's so good he got pulled out. And what's most interesting to me about him is his extracurricular activities. On his own, he went out, and this may be a controversial conversation because the nature of his organization is somewhat political, and it might be charged up if some people disagree, but just on how he's been able to, since 2021, August of 21, form a nonprofit organization, grow it to a $650,000 a year annual budget so he can raise money. He can get people excited and interested around what he's doing, has staff of 10 within 2 years, manages all staff and contractors, and then the nature of that organization is to manage a litigation docket. So he has multiple cases where he's fighting on behalf of, these civil type cases where he feels like he's righting wrongs. I went and looked at his organization because I'm 41. I'm a younger guy. Like, social media to me is the future of fighting a lot of these wars, as funny as that may sound to some. But he has a strong, this guy has the ability also to wage a media war. He is very savvy, which I would love to have that skill set here fighting for our river. So I see a multi-dimensional person in Simon that is clearly talented enough to be poached by the private sector. And the icing on the cake, which I thought was interesting, is he's a current mayor and councilman for his city in Pasco, Washington. So this guy is not only familiar with government and has worked in government and private, but is a functioning council member and knows exactly what we're doing up here in Robert's rules. And it's just very, very, very interesting skill set. My next was Mark Davis. Tab number 9. Mark also has a pretty solid skill set in environmental. He's got extensive experience Oh, I forgot to mention my concerns about, let me go back. Sorry, back to Simon. My concerns with Simon, and this is one of the reasons why I would definitely want to interview him, is does he have the bandwidth to take this on full force? Because it seems like he's got a lot of irons in the fire. So that would be one of my conversations is, are you going to move here, right? Are you going to fully commit to this? You know, will you take this on with the same passion and focus as you have these other issues? All right.
That's, to me, that's the intangible we have to have.
Right, right.
May I add
Yes.
something? So, Mr. Serrano did apply for the city attorney job when we were looking for that, and he seems to apply for every single job
Okay.
in government. Also, I did have concern about the stuff that he does post on his social media, because it can be, I guess, construed one way or the other, and it's very far to one political side, which may have controversy, you know, with different people from different areas. The other thing is, he, on the Washington Bar, and since you're an attorney, you know, if you go on the Washington Bar website, he lists only his foundation, and he does not list the Energy Northwest position as his legal career. And you cannot find his name anywhere with that company. So that's very interesting. And he,
Well, he's a politician.
yes, and he did just, I think, go for state representative or something, and I think he lost for the state of Washington.
Attorney General.
Yeah,
Well, he certainly might be interesting to interview.
I would like to interview him
yeah.
and get a sense on if that's a real issue.
Yeah,
But if we do interview him, it might be nice if you could provide us a memo of what you said just now and references to the social media posts you're talking about. So, you know, we
I
can,
actually have pictures, because when I was doing the city attorney one, Paul Nicoletti and I had posted
That was
some
something
of
she
them.
did with that last round that was
and I can,
amazing.
I had,
Was a dossier on every one of the small,
Yeah.
subset that we picked.
well, we,
And it was really nice to go through.
oh, I'm assuming our HR department will vet these people with some kind of background check too.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Ryan's is
Absolutely.
like CIA level though.
well, mine is more like, what are these people posting on social media? What are the public
It's a different-
records, like the court records show? No, that,
Well, well, interviewing,
Are they paying their
Okay.
child support payments? You know,
Right.
all the good stuff.
I'm very good at interviewing. Both of my paralegals have been with me over 25 years.
All right, so back at it. Mark Davis. Let me see where I left off. He's got more of a mix of experience, not all of it's environmental, but there was sufficient there. He does have pretty deep experience as an attorney. My concerns with him were, is this guy gonna have the energy level? That's one of the reasons I wanted to interview him. Is he peppy? Will he have that energy level with all that
Well,
experience?
I did actually talk to him, because
Okay.
what I liked about Jason was he grew up here, and
Mark,
I know, we're
Okay.
talking, but what I liked about Jason is he actually grew up here, but Mark is a windsurfer, what are they, kite surfer. He comes up here and surfs in our
awesome.
waters, and he's got friends up here, he's very familiar with our waters, and he's very aware of the pollution and the condition of them, so he seems like he's got a lot of energy, and he seems like, because, I mean, the first question I'm gonna have is, are you ready to pick a fight?
You
with
ready to
everybody?
fight?
You ready to pick a fight with everybody else in the state? Because right now,
Not that we wanna pick a fight,
no, we don't want
but
to.
if you have to,
No,
are
we
you
want to,
capable and
we
willing?
want to not do that off the bat, but
Right.
we have to identify who we need to fight with first.
It's gonna take a lot of energy to build this whole
Yeah.
thing up
I think
and do
you-
that research and.
You know, the problem with this application, is it prohibitive to ask for birthdays, because we don't have any idea how old
Prohibitive.
these people are.
I'm not worried about how old you are, it's more energy level. Do
Yeah, but
you
we can-
have
We can look up their ages on the Florida bar.
do you have the drive?
I think he's,
may
yeah.
I add something
Sure.
to his? On paper, he looked really, really good. The only concern that I did find was that he said he did pass the Florida bar, but he was not a current member. So I don't know if that means he's inactive and he just has to activate it or what. So that was a little concern that I had on that. And then the other thing is he did, the company that he's with, Axiom Legal, happens to be like a legal staffing company, not necessarily a law firm that specializes in environmental law. And I kind of frowned upon that he did not disclose the name of a company that he worked for as a special environmental counsel for 3 years in Nashville. He wrote confidential company, and there wasn't really that much information about it. So it was kind of, that's sort of like my red flag goes up. Like, and that one was with PFO and PFAS of a garment, I think it was a garment factory.
I noticed that the Axiom Legal had the same address, home address too.
Yes,
So he's working remote.
Yeah, well.
and he's not doing Florida
it's
law
his
if
own
he's
business
not
or something.
licensed here.
If he's inactive, it'd be quite simple to activate it.
Yeah,
You just have to get your CLE up to date,
He's too busy windsurfing.
maybe.
Well, which he said it's covered.
Right. Anyway, you
Next one was Deanna Khalil. And this starts to get in the realm with a lot of these where this is the beginning of their career. So she was lower down on my list here. She was a maybe. But does seem like she's quite smart. Maybe just has not had the opportunity yet. So I was curious to at least interview and see if she's got some spunk and fight in her. And like I said, she hasn't really had the opportunity to do what she really wants to do with environmental law. That was her focus, and it just hasn't materialized yet. So I wanted to see if she might be gung-ho and give this everything she has, or if it's just a job for her. Any dirt? on Deanna?
my notes said that she has handled environmental land use matters. She did handle a brownfield site redevelopment, which we have a potential brownfield at the waste.
Yep.
And she also worked on Clean Water Act violations. And what I did like is that in her, I guess, private time, she is involved in a lot of stuff that has to do with river and ocean and, yes.
So it's like she's right there, she just hasn't had the opportunity yet.
I think she's a good interview. Yep.
Keith Williams was another one. He's further in the back. 19. Keith had a pretty good mix of different, environmental gigs, public sector as well, right? DEP. My hope is that he's not entrenched because he hasn't been there for a little bit. The last agency gig was South Florida Water Management, and that ended in 16. And since he's been in private sector, so I don't see him as a bureaucrat like the other one. He's able to bounce in and out of both. But he does have that experience there. He does know how the agencies work. My red flag for him was he was only at Palm Beach Board of County Commissioners for a year, which made me a little bit red flag because, is it just Palm Beach that you don't like? Palm Beach municipal government, or is it municipal government in general? Because you went back to private. But that's one I'd like to talk to him. Kind of get his thought process. And then the last one for me was Ruth Holmes. Next tab over. She, again, has a nice mix. South Florida Water Management District, 08 to 15. But from that time on, she was at Martin County, which
7 years. Yeah, now she's with a private firm. Yeah.
which felt kind of like how Lee is, and I really like Lee, you know? So she spent some time at the county and was involved in LOSUM and all of these different things, so.
Yeah, she was with South Florida Water Management District, yeah.
So I like her too. I'd like to talk to her and
Yeah.
see, you know, is this something you'd really like to be able to do if we gave you that freedom?
Oh, I did speak with her, if you want me to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, she said, she left the county because they wouldn't unleash her to go after the problem. And she said when she was at the South Florida Water Management District, she said that, you know, everybody working over there thought that people in Stewart were crazy. I mean, we're just sending them lake water, what's their big deal? And she was there for quite a while, then she came to Martin County, and she said, oh, they're really not crazy, this is really a bad problem. So she was trying to solve the problem at the county, and like I say, they put a leash on her and wouldn't let her do it. That's why the county cannot be our ally. I mean, the western constituents of the county will not be in favor of us totally, you know, impairing the ability to dump that dirty water into the river.
Advocating for our
Yeah, so
constituents' best
yeah,
interest.
yeah, I think, and the other thing that Ruth said to me that I liked, she said, I don't need a job. I've got a very good job. I want to do this because it needs to be done.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
And she's got experience working with the state agency and with county, you know, local government, so I think she'll be a really good interview.
Well,
May
thank
I
you for that.
add to that, Chair? She was at the county before I was. I was at the county for less than a year. It didn't look that bad then, but I came here, I left there for this job, but she was handling as an outside counsel, some litigation when I started at the county. So I went and observed deposition, so forth, and I watched her for a few days, and it was a kind of a quasi-environmental issue on Kitchen Creek that we do, so forth. I was impressed with her skills as a lawyer in opposing folks, so I have some observation of her in litigation. And so I as far as being a litigator, she got that skill. She could probably handle any type of case in federal or state court. Just thought I'd let you know.
She also is realistic that there's lots of other things you have to do before you start litigating. You have to be prepared and make sure you have all your facts and your science in order before you fire the first shot. So yeah, she's definitely qualified, so we should interview her, and hopefully she sounds as good in an interview and is dedicated to this problem as she sounds. But,
Those were all of mine. If somebody else
okay,
wants to.
why don't we just, unless anybody strongly wants to volunteer, why don't we just go left to right? We'll start with Ed. I'll go last.
Okay, when I had narrowed it down to 3 candidates, Mark Davis, Keith Williams, and Ruth Holmes. And Chris pretty eloquently covered a lot of the same points that I would have made. So my only concern with, I did like the fact that Keith Williams had experience working with South Florida Water Management District. But he also spent some time there at Palm Beach Board of County Commissioners. I guess it was only about a year, but he probably left that position to take the job at South Florida Water Management District. And then he also had some DEP experience. And sometimes that concerns me when you're working for agencies that are so far removed from the city of Stewart, and the priorities that I think we should find in a candidate for this position is you've got to be able to stand on your own here. And the other thing about Keith Williams is I don't understand why he's got a gap in his employment since 2016. Like, I'm not sure what was going on during that time between then and now. So,
Well,
I'm not
if
sure.
you go to his actual resume versus the city, You'll see it. He's got,
Williams,
tab 19.
19.
Yeah.
It's in his private practice now.
so he went to go work for Saul Ewing and Arnstein.
Oh, okay. Right.
Land use zoning, land development, cannabis.
I'm not sure why there wasn't on
environmental.
the application, but anyway,
Environmental
that's,
That happens.
I overlooked that, but, that was my only concern with him. With Mark Davis, the points that I had, jotted down were, I liked his experience with the, US EPA. And, he had been with the Varn Law Firm before that for about 10 years, so he understands environmental law pretty well. So it's just, a matter of, what tab is, Mark Davis?
9.
9. Yeah, that part about the Axiom Legal and then having the same address as his home address, I wasn't sure about what that really was trying to tell us. So I didn't know if I was kind of crazy about that. But, and then Ruth Holmes, one thing is I never met her, never knew of her experience here in Martin County. So my only question was whether or not she did care about what we're looking for from a candidate in this position for the city of Stewart.
Give me, who was that, the last one? Holmes?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, Holmes, that's the last one, that's tab 21.
Yep.
And so my concern was whether or not she actually does care about how the perspective is different between Water Managed District and Palm Beach, which has never cared one iota about anything going on in Stewart, and whether her focus on St. Lucie River and what its actual needs are can be separated from the philosophy from the Water Managed District. And it sounds like Chairman Stuckey kind of addressed that in the conversation he had, so I was pretty confident about that. And that's all I had.
We can go into a lot more depth in the interview, but yeah, I think she's definitely an interview.
Okay.
So your short list was Holmes, Williams. and
Holmes,
Davis.
Williams, and Davis.
Beautiful. Thanks, sir.
How about you, Roz? I mean, Mark,
yeah.
Mark has been visible because he's wearing a cap. Yeah, blue tablecloth, blue shirt, I
You can go wherever- you can go
didn't even
wherever
see.
No, I had a very similar kind of choices between Davis, Kaylee, Dutoy, Jason. Dutoy. But Dutoy, Jason, I've known several years. He actually switched.
So you couldn't talk him into not dropping out, huh?
I didn't know he dropped.
Yeah.
We did on that. But he had, obviously, read.
Yep. I'm sure we'll be calling him at some point.
We wanted him.
Yeah, and a big affinity to, since he's not available or for whatever reason, I guess, because I have had similar kind of concerns and comments that have already, the suspect of people were in their previous business and where they work with the district, or other cities, counties, kind of look at that experience. What is that going, is it going to apply to the, and how they lean on some of that experience, but not so good. Look at it that way. Also kind of tried to understand the qualification, like in the case of one where we said, well, he may be able to reinstate his member. Was the Florida bar specific qualification? If these applicant members of the Florida bar really applicants?
Right.
That's correct.
Well, they don't meet the basic qualifications, but you can give them time to meet the qualifications.
Right. But if.
That's really what they'll be doing.
But assuming that they have met, what I was getting
Here is also
here
one
is
of our qualifications.
minimum qualifications have been met by all of
Not
us.
remote.
I'm hoping that he wouldn't have applied if he didn't think he could activate his membership. But we can find that out in the interview.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the other part of the kind of thing is, so are we, it seems like the standard here is going to go to interview. Or the, of course, when you meet people face to face, have them hire and terminate. What I look at a lot is what is motivating them? What is their interest? Leaving what they're doing currently, whatever that is, coming to this job, position, why is that? Get a feeling from them. Usually you do an interview process.
Yeah.
Trying to get drives what they're gonna do with that experience and how they're gonna drive. Have the ability going forward. And also they're kind of gives you an interest in their availability. Are they looking for just for a job? Or is something
Yeah.
sometimes you can't get that.
As I,
Or
as
on
I,
Zoom interview screening process. Just gotta understand them face. But on paper, obviously,
this is gonna be, the intangibles on these applicants are gonna be so important. Yeah, as I told every one of them, I'm looking for a warrior, not a bureaucrat.
Right.
and you know, in the process, you always say, well, we missed somebody
Mhm.
that has yet to apply or cut it off or whenever the date. You have
We'll be
to,
extended it, but,
yeah, you have to kind of go with this situation. What you have is what you have. If we feel strongly that there's a good candidate here, as a committee, should
yeah, 'cause
after an interview process. We- That's through the process.
and I really,
Sorry, and I do appreciate all the insights, whether it's, you know, before we got you, even, I mean, it's not, you know, don't wait, shout out. About what- back. No. people have, learning that, but because they may not have read that, having that.
I am so glad you're here, Mark, because you know more about this than anybody on the planet.
Well, I know a lot about the river process,
Oh.
but I
I figure you,
and we did the litigation process. through-
Right. yeah,
But, you know, our advisors that through Everglades Law Center or Justice, or other organizations, work with people. Legal associates.
Mhm.
You know, those, you know, the litigation of what we want to do, getting the city, takes just what Sheriff Stuckey said, it's about the act. You got to have somebody that's willing to do all, get out.
mhm. Yeah, because the
You can't
Miccosukee
just have
case,
somebody go and say, we're gonna do this, do that, do that. That costs money and a lot of time. Gotta go in, really work. Even just, but just the presence of the city having environmental attorney who's focused is gonna make all of really whole. Figuring out laws on the books already that could be enforced, to get our, and or if they're not, get legislation put so that it makes, you know, that's what, to me, legal action here is to get somebody specifically on board with the city. But it's like, we really. Those are kind of mine.
so to recap, Mark, is that Davis,
That was-
Williams, and Holmes?
Davis Khalil,
Khalil, yeah,
Khalil, yeah, Davis Khalil.
okay.
And on her, I would talk to Carolyn.
Mhm.
Carolyn. Inside. She's sharp.
Who is this? Forgive me.
Carolyn Hansay, she is during the time she was senior attorney,
Oh, okay.
her supervisor.
I got you.
Carol. For minute. Inside.
Thank you.
Okay, Roz,
Okay, you brought up some good points, Mark, that I want to drive back into. One was that when we're talking about the job description, if you look behind tab number 3, the job description for the position, which was approved by the City of Stewart Commission, appears, and there are highlights, yellow highlights in there. Those highlights relate directly to the spreadsheet, the legal size document, yes, that was given. And those categories about being good standing in Florida bar, licensed U.S. district, Southern district, those columns that are currently blank was for us to work through and fill out as we were navigating the applications, because they do tie directly back to the job description. Very important that we keep that in mind, because if we are going to, consider wavering and saying, well, we could accept this and not accept that and give time for this, had that been identified in the posting and the job description and the posting, other candidates may have applied. So when we're looking at these, we wanted to be cognizant of how the job description reads and what is important there. Also, I should have pointed out in the beginning, we did not have any veterans, United States veterans who applied, because that's something that we would have taken into consideration, but none of them applied, so there isn't a veteran preference issue here as well. Something else to mention, I can't remember, but it may come back to me.
too bad, because we really could use a Navy SEAL.
Yes. So when I was looking through the candidates, and I think all of you have so far articulated these very well, I did identify Mark Davis as a good candidate. Was concerned about the active in Florida bar, because it didn't appear that he was, and that turns out to be true, and Ryan is catching up on the rest of the candidate criteria. I also had Deanna Khalil. Of course, I had Jason. Allison Kelly, interestingly, although I honor and respect what you were saying here, Chris, but I did actually select her because I thought her perspective on the opposite side could potentially serve us well. But I understand where you're coming from, but I did select her because sometimes having someone who's seen both sides of the coin
Right.
can be beneficial.
Some of the best criminal defense attorneys used to be prosecutors.
Yeah, so I just thought that could be an asset. Keith Williams and certainly Ruth Holt. Oh, I know what it was. You had mentioned about what we see on paper, and I think that's another good point I'd like to just bring up, that sometimes anything can land on paper. AI can be used to generate your resume and create all kinds of fancy verbs. Resumes are only an element to open a door, if you will, to an interview. It's the interview where the real magic. That's where they have to prove that what they've put on paper is real, and they prove it through the type of question. So sometimes having more candidates on the list is beneficial.
Okay.
Hence 4, 5, 6. I understand 3, but what if those 3 don't interview well and can't clearly demonstrate that they have the experience, education, background that they claim they have? Then we're back to the drawing board again. So sometimes having a few more is handy, because some may surprise us in the interview, surprise you in the interview,
That's why you're here.
That
You're
they-
HR, you know.
that they
I
just,
trust you.
they can't hold water, pun intended.
And frankly, any kind of advocacy is going to require the ability to convince a decider of what you're saying, and the interview would be a good first step. If you can't interview, you probably can't win a case or a motion.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well
So,
played, yeah.
yeah, so ultimately, those are my 5 remaining. Davis, Khalil, Kelly, Williams, and Holmes.
Come up.
Right.
So I did do the research on the background. First and foremost, I think, and I personally believe that the person that is offered this position should be from Florida. I think that the Everglades, Lake Okeechobee, the waterways here are very unique to our state, and especially in our, the southern counties. And I think that the person that takes the position needs to appreciate that and know a little bit about it. And I think that it would be beneficial for somebody that has either been raised here or worked here or been in South Florida for a number of years, so that, they know what they're handling and dealing with. The candidates that I chose were the same as Roz, with the exception of Mark Davis. I didn't, like I said before, I didn't care that he worked for like a staffing agency, and it almost seemed to me like he was like semi-retired. And because he's not an active bar member, he is active with the Michigan bar and the Wisconsin bar. So that means that he's working remotely from home, probably for another state. And so that caused a little bit of, concern in
He's
my mind.
primarily from Wisconsin, I think.
And then Jason was my number one pick,
Yeah.
of course, like
Yeah.
everybody else. I
Yeah.
just,
When he told me he was dropping out, I said, you're probably
I know.
everybody's number one pick.
I thought that he had, just reading some of his published work, that he is passionate
Oh, yeah.
about it and is very, very
That's all he's ever done.
familiar
Yep.
with it. And he, worked at nonprofits, fighting the uphill battle against, federal agencies and stuff like that. So I appreciate that. So I was very sad when I heard that he dropped out. I chose Kelly, Williams, and Holmes. And I think that they probably have the most experience working with, the agencies that they're going to be going against. And I think Roz is right in the sense that it may be beneficial that they did work at some of these agencies because they know the ins and outs of it. But I can also appreciate, like, what's their ulterior motive type of
Just trying to
thing.
avoid a swamp creature,
Yeah. And I can see it from both views.
You might
but
be
yeah.
institutionalized.
Yeah. Or you could go against
Or you
the
could be really mad.
grain,
Yeah,
exactly.
the
Yes.
system, okay, fair.
Yeah. See, I think that that may hold true for Ms. Holmes. I think that she actually was an advocate for the Lake Okeechobee and the discharges, and I think that she may have felt like she was silenced. I think maybe this may be her chance to shine and inter.
So, to recap, you had Kelly, Williams, and Holmes?
Yes.
Khalil?
And
Khalil.
Oh, and
Khalil.
Khalil.
Yeah, and Khalil too.
Khalil. Kelly Williams.
Mhm.
And I did do a spreadsheet. I took the stuff that Roz did, and I just added some of the stuff, like I have their law degrees when they graduated law school. That gives you sort of like more information of how long it took them to get through law school, and
Those would be good interview questions.
yes. So if you want to pass this.
And what I thought we would
Hold on,
do
I think I have mine.
is, when we come up with our final list, make sure that they, with the research that you've done, that they're meeting the criteria set forth.
That's right, you work for the city, you can produce a summary for our interviews.
Yes, and I think like on the first candidate, Steve Griffin, like he was inactive when I first started researching it on the Florida bar when he submitted his resume, but then he, I think, paid the dues to be active, and now he's an active member of the Florida bar.
Mac, you're up.
Okay. All right, well, let me get my list back here. I had 3 of the same ones. I have Ruth Holmes, I have Mark Davis, and I have Deanna Khalil. And I have one that nobody else has had,
All right, let's go.
and it is Mr. Harvey Sheldon. He's probably pushing 80 with the experience he's had. But I actually talked to him, and he's down in Boynton Beach or somewhere down there, and he's been with the EPA. He's done really high-level litigation, and he's still fighting. And I think he's probably, I can't say, I mean, the fact that I didn't ask him what his birthday was, because I guess I can't ask that, but the big problem is him is if he gets in here and uses all his experience, he may not last long enough to finish the job.
Right.
I really do think to even get to the point where we stop the discharges is going to be a 5 to 10 year process. Because even if we find the winning strategy, the opponents have avenues to slow it down and stop it until you finally get the final decision. I'm hoping, the Miccosukee lawsuit, I mean, they fought and fought and fought, and that thing is a consent decision. It's a consent thing, so you can't send polluted water to the Everglades because of that. And they set arbitrary standards for those releases to the south, which have never been met. All those STAs that they put water in, which is not coming from the lake, is coming from the runoff from the sugar fields, have never been able to be treated so that you could even release 1 ounce. And the new reservoir is going to probably have the same problem. So, restoring the Everglades is not digging holes, but unfortunately that's what they've called it. But anyway, so Sheldon's got, my only argument for him is he's got a wealth of experience, and he could be the wise old man that could get us on the right track. I think he did say that whether he got the job or not, he would definitely be available as a consultant. He's just sold out for the environment, and he's lived in the state long enough that would be helpful. So I think he might be an interesting interview, but I'm the only one that's got him, so I'm not going to fight for him. So those are the only 4. And Jason would have been my #1 guy too. So let me just, well, we've all spoken. Let me just look and see what I've got. We've all agreed on Holmes.
So you, hold on, Mac, you got Davis, Khalil, Sheldon.
Well, I have
Holmes?
Davis, Khalil, Sheldon, and Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah, on paper, Keith was worth it. So let me just see how many total we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 of them. Out of all of us, there's only 6 that we put on the list. And
With Sheldon. Right, we have
6 with
5 on
Sheldon,
the list.
otherwise it's 5.
Right.
So let me.
7 counting Serrano. So we got
Serrano.
Oh,
yeah.
Serrano,
Williams,
sorry.
Kelly, Sheldon.
So you're the
Khalil,
only
Davis,
one with Serrano, and I'm the only one with Sheldon.
Yeah, so,
I do agree that Serrano would be a really interesting interview.
I just wouldn't want, I know he's spicy and he probably looks a little scary, especially to the bureaucratic class, but I wouldn't want to knock him out because he might have views that we don't agree with, like posts on Facebook about COVID, or I'd like to talk to him and see.
Well, he is a member of the Florida Bar.
Part of it is I want to know if he even understands that this is not a remote position too, because that very well may be the case.
Our interview invitation will be a letter, and you probably ought to put all that in the letter, see if they accept the invitation.
Roz, do you know if we had living here as one of the prerequisites?
no.
Okay, so
We
that might
did
be
not.
part of it.
Well,
It's not in the job description anyway. It's expected that they'll be here,
But would they,
but it's not in, it's
but
not
if, yeah, they
written.
may not have even seen it.
Yeah, I
True,
think
so what,
I saw it somewhere, living in the
So
city.
within 2 years,
Living in the city.
oh, yeah, that's true. We did put it in there. We put it in the,
it was in this,
yes,
Flyer.
we did.
Well, there's so many places that are surrounded by Stewart that aren't Stewart. I hope
Within-
we'll be a little flexible on that.
So it says within
That
2 years of
actually being-
appointment,
Right,
the
right.
successful candidate will reside within 25 miles of City Hall
Oh, is
unless
that it?
otherwise
Of
excused.
City Hall, well, that's the whole county. Yeah.
Unless otherwise excused by the commission.
Okay, so you got you got a really good person that wants to live in Palm City, you're not gonna rule them out.
Yeah, I would, as someone who went through that, I didn't want to move from Palm City over the bridge just for the job,
You
you know,
must.
so
You're not committed.
I would be a little, you know, someone might live down in Palm Beach, a few of the candidates live in Palm Beach County, or they might live in Fort Pierce. If it's outside the 25 miles, I don't know that.
Well, I intend to work them
Uproot
so,
'em.
I intend to work them so hard and be at their elbow that they better get themselves here, or I'll follow them home.
I say that with regard to Serrano, because he's in Washington.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I guess the question I would have is, you said Serrano had applied for a city attorney position. Was he, did he get interviewed? Was anybody interviewed?
I don't think he made the short list.
Okay,
And we don't know if he's applying to every municipality, but we know he applied for both of our jobs, right? So maybe he just really likes Stewart.
Well, he did go to college here. He went to law school, here, and then got his LLM up in Vermont. And then I know he, has his California bar license, and now lives in Washington, but I don't know if he was from here originally.
Okay.
Question I would ask him is, are you willing to give up all that
Correct.
peripheral stuff and focus only on saving this river? That's the question. If he says, no, I need to do all this other stuff, I said, thank you very much.
Right. But if I could have all that energy deployed to this river,
Yeah, if you could direct it, definitely. So we've got a few ways we could go here. We could just, out of the 5 of us, we've identified 7 potential interviews.
Mhm.
Or we could go to the ones that a majority of us agree to, and with Sheldon.
I like
and
Roz's point of keeping it
Honor being the.
more open and.
I think I would entertain a motion that we invite all 7,
I mean, does it,
because everybody might not accept the invitation.
That's right, and that's what, if I
Exactly.
may ask, that when we actually schedule the interview, we do it by phone. We have that interaction with them, and I can ask questions.
Because we
you know,
want them
this
to,
is
I don't want them to
full-time.
interview by Zoom. If they want to interview by Zoom, I mean, I don't, maybe the guy in Washington, but
But otherwise, yeah.
I,
We had one at
an
the
old guy.
last one that
I
didn't.
mean, I'm an old guy. There are so many levels of
Maybe that was
communication that occur in person that do not work on a 2-dimensional screen. I mean, you can tell more about the person before they open their mouth than you can talking to them on a computer screen.
Correct.
So I really do think we would need to insist that the interview be in person.
I would recommend that it be in person because there is a different, without sounding woo-woo, there's a different energy in the room when they're live.
Yep.
So when you have some live, some Zoom, and then there could be tech issues, that creates a
You could
whole
be
new set of
interviewing AI.
problems, you know, and you want you want the playing field to be as level as possible, so equality for all, as much as we can. So having everyone live would be the best. And when we call them to extend that invitation to interview,
Mhm.
that's when I would describe that this is full-time on-site, it is in-person, it's not a
Exactly.
remote.
Perfect.
Right, so if somebody feels the need to withdraw, they could do it,
Right. Perfect.
right?
All right. I would make a motion along those lines.
Go ahead, Mark.
Unless there's
Well,
any further.
Perhaps, no, we kind of narrowed it down to 7, but there was only 2 of those. I would suggest we narrow it down to the 5. About more than Kelly, who had 2, Haley at 5, David at 5, 4 Williams at 6. Those 2 that hold consideration.
Well, if we interviewed the 5 and one of them didn't stand out, I guess we could contact others.
Maybe as an alternate.
I think if you want them to be potentially an alternate, include them in this whole process. Again, people might drop out, people, you know,
I agree
Yeah,
with
if they-
that.
and you might end up with only 3 or 4 people by the time Roz is done
Yeah,
trying to even
you
set
might
up.
get a couple no's when you extend the
And if they
invitation.
don't,
Right,
Like how Jason took another job, and you don't want to get too picky, I think, at this point.
if they want to invest in a hotel room and an
Correct.
airplane ticket, then they're not dedicated enough.
and I think Mark's point is valid,
Yes.
looking at just the top 5, but the other issue is if we have a Plan B, so to speak, then we have to reconvene all the
Correct.
commissioners again and go through the process of the two,
Correct.
and maybe gathering them
no.
all together, and then, yeah.
I think it's amazing that we were able to narrow that down to 7.
Well, there was only 10 that actually met the basic qualifications, if you include Davis, who's inactive with the bar. Yeah.
Does
that
everyone meet the min quals
On the,
on the short list?
on the paper,
Uh-huh.
yes,
Except for Mark not being in Florida bar.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I will mention that.
You might, when you ask him to interview, just ask him, how long will it take you to be an active member of the Florida bar?
How long
What do you have to do?
I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
Well,
Active
I'm
or-
an inactive member of the South Carolina bar, because I worked there for many years. And all I have to do to get reinstated, all it does is allow me to pay a lesser, actually, I have to pay the same dues, but to get reinstated, I just have to get my CLE updated. But I don't know, I think Florida's the same. If they can be an active member, they can still get reinstated by proving they've gotten the CLE.
You have continuing ed every year, is
Yeah,
like what I do?
every 2 years. But I don't know why he's not active, you know?
They probably just didn't
Yeah.
want to.
It could be another reason, so
Well,
if he has to retake the bar, I would reconsider.
No, just, I would just,
I
So,
agree with that.
well,
I'd like to include him as well, and then if we see that that's an issue as we're doing the overall interviews,
mhm.
and
Well, just make his invitation conditional upon Roz determining that he could get his Florida bar membership activated within a month after he's, because you can get all your CLAs
do you think that's
in
enough
2
time?
days.
Does it say within the system, when you go into the system, I've only been in there a couple of times, does it say why?
no. It just
Doesn't.
says inactive, and like the 10-year discipline doesn't have anything, so I don't think it was anything like disciplinary.
I mean, you can voluntarily become inactive, so you don't have to
I know it's
complete all
a,
the CLE.
with chiropractic, it's that way too. You stay, you're not ending your license, but you're keeping it dormant.
Mhm.
It's so you don't have to take the Florida bar exam again,
Right,
essentially.
that's the main
Right,
reason.
because like I'm a member of the Realtors Association, but I'm inactive, but I pay my dues and do my CLEs every year.
Right.
I just don't practice real estate.
But if you wanted to, you could reinstate
correct.
yourself, yep.
So maybe conditional upon hiring or
No, well, I think
close?
when you,
I can find out when I make the phone
when
call
you
to
make the
extend
phone
the
call, says
invite
we
for
want
the
to
interview.
interview you as long as you can assure us that you can be an active member of the bar within, let's say, 60 days. If you can't tell us that, then we're not interviewing you. Can we amend the motion to that effect? Because you've got a motion to interview all 7.
Yeah, so I would motion we interview all 7, and that we make becoming an active Florida bar member for Mr. Davis, extending it out to him based on 60 days, having that act.
And I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Roll
Aye.
call?
Do you need a roll call? or-
We don't need, if
Sorry.
we're unanimous. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we got 7 interviewees. Good work, guys.
Nice.
Thanks for your hard work, because obviously everybody studied it. You want to discuss any journal things before we adjourn?
Well, just kind of the step forward, so there's interview process that you had suggested earlier.
And I would love for you to be part of it, too.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting-
That was correct, Mark.
Well, I'm just suggesting that it's appropriate, if that's appropriate. I don't know how that interview process necessarily going forward, if you could just explain, okay, the city commission, or all commissioners, or Collins, or
No, we will all interview all of the candidates.
separately.
Correct.
That's why they did it for me, so.
When Lee was here, we
Yeah.
had individual rooms,
oh, I see.
and so we would sort of speed date and go through the
Right.
different rooms for a period of time
So
and ask
each
questions.
commissioner individual, not collective,
Correct.
each commissioner.
And then we all reconvened and discussed as a
Oh, and
group,
then you
you know.
had a public kind of
Mhm.
gather, so you have to convene with the public and
Exactly,
then discuss.
yeah. What we
That was-
thought, what our
was that on
questions
that
were, how
schedule?
the answers went.
Yes.
And then we individually voted,
Well-
sort of drew straws for who got the most and weeded it down to finally selecting Lee.
Now, Roz, in the course of setting up these interviews, is that when you discuss what the salary range is gonna be, or is that be part of the interview process?
So the salary range is communicated in the job posting, and it's also in the recruitment brochure. So it's a negotiable, there's a range of 150 to 175. So it's depending on qualification.
Well, they apply based on that, then 175, because I noticed the ones that did actually reveal their current salaries, ours is probably very close or better than that. I know Ruth Holmes, I think she says she's making 15,000 a month, and ours with the benefits would be even better than that. She made 12,000 a month when she was working for the county. So, yeah, like I said in the beginning, a dedicated environmental lawyer is not doing it for the money.
Correct.
They're doing it for the mission.
It's a fair salary, but it's really gotta be your passion.
Right. It enables
I,
you to.
I think that the
This
range
is
you
a
set
gr-
was
This is
perfect.
now, Bobby Parsons, I was hoping, who I brought to the city commission meeting, I was hoping he was gonna apply, but he took another job in Vero, but I did reach out to him and, tell him that he would be a good possibility if he wanted to get in the mix, and but thank you very much, but he said he really wants to be a part. And if, in fact, entire environmental law section, except the ones that represent developers, our guy, our girl, Al, will have an open door to any of the other environmental law people, and they will be invited to come speak to the environmental law section to explain what they're doing on the municipal level to try to clean up local pollution problems when the state and federal government is totally neglecting it, or in our case, the state and federal government are the total perpetrators of the problem. So I really think we have a chance to make history, make law, and help a lot of other smaller communities that are just completely run over by the bigger powers. I mean, we're the little guy. We're going to be the mouse that roared. That was what Nicoletti said. You want us to be the mouse that roared? I said, hell yeah. So I'm hoping we get a nice big mean mouse to represent the city of Stewart.
Amen.
Mr. Chair, and looked at the timeline, so the interviews, commission will interviews on week 21st. That's still on, and then the commission will vote on it.
I think it is. These dates could flux a little bit, but they will be given, we have binders for them as well, so everything is prepared for them. We'll put together the summary so that they know what the recommendations are, and recommend that we have those interviews the week of the 21st, because all the candidates need more than a day or two to prepare themselves, maybe fly in, or whatever the needs may be. So that would be the recommendation, but these dates could flux.
And I want to say that I appreciate this process. Also appreciate everybody's comment, but especially to your.
She's obviously
a
a very good
lot of hard
paralegal.
work.
A lot of hard
She's
work
great.
went into that.
Ryan's the real deal.
Yep.
Better than the FBI, my husband will say.
I appreciate
Very
that.
much.
And then everything. Question going forward now is, I really, if we just available or if so, let's decide. But, really don't have a desire to
Because
go out to these candidates. and talk.
Yeah, because I haven't been able to talk
We
to a couple
shouldn't
people I'd
probably
like
do
to
that,
talk
or
to
we
just
shouldn't
socially.
talk
Not
about it. Public say, oh yeah, we had this process, we selected these for interviews. We're allowed to talk in public format about that. I don't want.
So the sunshine is you're supposed to be out in the public.
Right.
They don't want behind closed doors deals
Right.
going on. That's the whole point. So you can speak to other members of this committee socially or about other topics.
Sure.
You could talk about some other topic, even dealing with the city, just not on the candidates for this position. Unless the city commission at the next meeting says they don't need you anymore and we're going forward, as Commissioner Collins brought up. What if they send it back to you guys and you guys start talking amongst each other? Then I just don't want you guys to run afoul of sunshine law.
Is that something that we need to formally disband this committee at that meeting?
Do we do it or does the
It's not
city
wide
do it?
open- It's not open-ended,
I think we can do that city commission meeting.
so we can get that on the agenda.
If you guys,
Yeah.
let's say we have 7 candidates, you guys don't want 7 candidates, you send it back to them. You could, the city commission could limit it to 7 to 3, you know.
Oh, we're just
They have
recommend-
that, but they could also send it back to this board to decide, so.
But otherwise, we would just,
Yeah.
part of the resolution would be to disband it, or?
I mean, we can just, we can bring it up at the next agenda, because it's gonna be, we'll have an agenda item on this, and we'll bring it up at that point. Do you need anything else from the advisory board?
We need to stay sunshine aware until you officially release us.
I would say, just in case, in an abundance of caution, like,
So send us a letter saying we're released from any further responsibility for the hiring committee.
After
Yeah,
And
after they tell us, yeah.
The
You can-
24th is the next meeting,
Mm-hmm.
so.
you can
Assuming
talk,
it makes it on the agenda.
Because I got a lot of things I want to talk to that guy about. I don't want any phone calls on record, though.
Perfect.
And the same goes for talking to any of the candidates.
yeah, the city
Some of us
commission,
may have
Please
had,
you knew
But
one
I
of
don't
them,
The issue with that?
right?
there- I think there
At this
probably
point,
should be is like, we don't go out, and, hey, you were selected, you're gonna get a.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue with that if someone reaches out to you, if you know somebody. We're just, that wouldn't violate sunshine.
Yeah,
That's just gonna interfere with our, normal hiring practices. And again, the city commission didn't authorize us to individually contact them. I think they said, feel free to go out and,
Correct.
let it be known that we have this job opening, but not to actual
Yeah.
interview. I think that's what they wanna do,
we
the city
investigated.
commission.
But,
So-
but our city environmental attorney, I mean, this is gonna be so great. I talked to Mike about this, or a few things, like, we could set up the City of Stewart Environmental Protection Department over there in the old Chamber of Commerce building, right in Shepherd's Park, because the electric boat company is gone, and we can only use that for public purposes. So we could set up our environmental lawyer right there, looking at that dirty creek, and
It would be motivating.
it's just big enough to house a paralegal, and I mean, really, our guy and a really powerful computer and legal research program is gonna be the expenditure for the first year or two, until they've looked at everything and talked to everybody and said, okay, I have a quiver full of arrows, and here's where we're going to shoot them. But it's exciting. Thank you. I appreciate all the hard work y'all have done to get us here.
Chairman Stuckey, may I just respond to Chris's question about speaking to the matter of talking to candidates before the interview process? It's very important that the interview process remains, again, equal for all.
Right.
And if we are having conversations with candidates before the interview process, where all of the interview questions are and all of the applicants are receiving the same questions in the interview process, that creates that equal playing field, level playing
Sure.
field for everybody. If we're having conversations with them ahead of that, it can alter a candidate's perception of fairness, equity. They could depart the process because something was said to them that they felt slighted, or whatever word you want to choose. So generally, there is no discussion with candidates. The discussion takes place in the interview, and they all get the same questions. And you can probe, get an answer, and you want to ask the candidate to expand on that answer.
So all five
That's
commissioners are
probing.
gonna ask the same questions?
They have the same question. And they can probe beyond.
So how are those questions developed?
They're developed off of the job description. That's where it all starts.
We're free to ask whatever questions. but there
You are.
Yeah.
But as long as it's in the framework.
But there's some structure, yeah. So that makes sure all of the candidates get the
Because
same
you're dealing with
questions.
seven
When you're
lawyers.
cross-examining,
Yes, right,
you're
right.
cross-examining a witness, you don't know what they're gonna say. And if they say something that leads you down another path, you don't wanna say, oh gee, I can't ask that, it's not on this list.
No, we
Right.
can't.
Okay.
And that's why the interviews are private. So we'll be
Yeah.
able to be with them one-on-one and talk.
And also, I did notice on some of the applications and resumes, they didn't want us to contact their
Right.
current employer, so, keeping it quiet and let the interview process and
Right.
all that go. Yeah.
That's,
Right. Well, hopefully we'll have at least one really good one that's willing to take the job, because if we don't have a really good one, we cannot fail. We may have to reopen the thing and figure out another way to recruit somebody.
I don't disagree.
I will
But,
tell you, opening it up for the extended length actually brought, I
Brought a
mean, the
couple more-
prime
Yeah.
candidates.
Well,
Yeah,
First
it
round
did.
was during the holidays, so it kind
Well,
of.
when we
worked out.
reopened it, I got a hold of the chairman of the environmental law
Yeah.
section and said, blast it out again, and I guess we got a couple more.
Mhm.
Ruth was in the second batch.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's gonna work out. So we've got our 7 to be invited
Yeah.
on condition of verifying their Florida Bar people available. And is there anything else the committee wants to discuss? Mark?
So I guess our last official act will be
Yeah, for the clerk, correct.
then, but as far as retaining these materials, do that,
You can,
recycle.
yeah, you can leave them here, or you can take them with you.
Mark,
I
you can
would
go in you can both go in your binder collection.
I have, I have a lot of paper. And not that I don't want this or want to look it through.
It might be helpful for
I
us
would
to
hold
see
on to
Mark's
them.
storage unit, let's just
I
put
would
it that
think
way.
In case for reconvene.
So this is the case.
It might be helpful for us to reuse it too with the
That's,
commissioners.
that's what I thought.
But
Just
hold on to it until the 24th.
That's
The
right.
24th,
Because
and
What if
if
they
it's-
send it back?
Decommission and ready
Right.
to turn it in.
Turn it in and I'll recycle it. Got it.
Thank you, though, for preparing.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
I'll have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Any opposed? None? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank
Good
you.
work.
Thank you.
So what do we do with this,
Sign it in
front of
front of
Mary.
Mary.
over there right now?
Yeah.
We're right back there being very quiet.